Tonight on Nova, take the flight of your life. Climb inside the cockpit of a Russian fighter plane. Once top secret, these machines were in the vanguard of the Soviet military. Now, the Russians reveal why their planes and their pilots are still dangerous.
If you did this at American Air Base, you wouldn't have your career left.
Open her up and let her rip. It's Top Gun over Moscow.
Forged of revolution, 2 world wars, and decades of Cold War fears, these powerful fighter jets were the pride of the Soviet Air Force. Today, they fly for the Russian Federation. For nearly 50 years, the United States expected to do battle with these men and machines. Now, for the first time, the West can pull back the Iron Curtain to see just what kind of Air Force Russia built.
Yeah, I've got to tell you, the Russians are pretty good pilots. I mean, those guys, you get in the right circumstances, are going to be could be a very lethal force.
I'll put it this way. A pilot in an F-18 and a pilot in a MiG-29 should be friends. I wouldn't want them to come into conflict with each other, to fight against one another.
They're no dummies. I mean, those are some pretty smart people over there and heroic people.
Many believe it would have been a close contest. America's jets and pilots against Russia's. But they would have approached the battle very differently.
Kind of the whole philosophy of Russian fighters is rugged nature, max performance, passive weapons, ease of maintenance in the field. All those combined into one philosophical bent that is quite different from Western fighters.
Russia has impressive air technology, which may even surpass the West in some areas. But their way of doing things has a practical, almost primitive side that baffles Western observers. Increasingly, the West has come to rely on computer-driven planes and weaponry, surgical bombing, and air battles that take place beyond visual range.
Good kill, good kill!
Russia lacks this high level of electronic warfare and is currently in severe economic trouble. Yet, those who study the Russian Air Force say it would be foolish to dismiss them.
So I wouldn't count them out. I wouldn't dare count them out, particularly when you have airplanes that are this effective, this combat capable, this rugged. I think the Russians have a real future.
American pilot Jeff Ethel has flown over 200 types of military aircraft, including the American F-15, 16, and 18, and the Russian MiG-21 and 29. Rejected by the Air Force for his 2040 vision, he became an aviation author, call sign Fighter Writer. Jeff has come to Zhukovsky Air Base 15 miles outside Moscow to fly the Sukhoi 27, Russia's top-line fighter jet. His co-pilot is Igor Voitintsev of the Sukhoi Design Bureau. From the Bureau's secret corner of the airfield, Nova procured a fully equipped Su-27 for Jeff to try. The 25-ton fighter interceptor will reach top speeds of 1,550 miles per hour at an altitude of 59,000 feet. Its greater than 1-to-1 thrust-to-weight ratio gives it one of the fastest acceleration rates of any jet in the world.
I would say the first third of the airplane is very, very finely built. It's smooth where it needs to be in the airflow. The last two-thirds of the airplane is very rough. It doesn't need to be built like a Cadillac. So they pretty much refine it where it needs to be and leave the rest of it alone.
Jeff wanted to fly the Su-27 to feel what Russian fighter pilots have at their command.
If anything, Russian airplanes are brute force. They're just absolutely the epitome of power. And the first thing we did was a terrific low level. And Igor was quite happy to be right down in the street. Igor said, here, let me take it. We went down into a riverbed. And I mean so low that we could see the distinct trees coming by on either side of the riverbank.
Low-level flight is dangerous, especially at a blistering 650 miles an hour. But Russians have always valued the ability to fly low in support of their ground troops and to evade radar detection.
Then just pointed the nose up, went into afterburner, punched through the cloud deck, and the first thing we started to do was a series of rolls.
I show you okay?
Pulling high G in this airplane did not seem to be as uncomfortable to me as maybe in some other airplanes. Probably not as good as an F-16 because you're lying down a bit, but certainly easier than most airplanes that you sit up in.
Little overshoot.
Quite frankly, the capability is to turn very fast, very tight, low. And that's an important capability for evading enemy aircraft fire, enemy missiles. And I said I would like to do a few rolls. He said, fine, we'll just do them over the runway. I said, no, I mean a couple rolls. No, just fly to the runway. I'll give you the heading. And then when you come down, I want you at 50 meters or less. And we'll come down, and then I want you to roll it and pitch up in a half loop for landing. So here we come, roaring across the runway. I mean, zipping along, and I'm pretty low. He says, you're not low enough. So bump the stick a little bit forward, and down we come. And I mean, we were low.
Okay. Yes, sir.
If you did this at American Air Base, you wouldn't have your career left.
There are many striking contrasts between Russian and American air bases, not the least of which is overall appearance. In the United States, daily FOD sweeps for foreign object damage clear the flight line of the smallest bits of litter that could wreck a jet engine. At Russian airfields, metal scrap is tossed in the open. The grass is allowed to grow tall, even on the runways. Birds, lethal to an engine if sucked inside, gather freely in the fields around the tarmac. To the Russians, there is an undeniable logic behind the mess. After all, the field of combat would hardly be cleaner.
Walking around a Russian air base is quite a unique experience for an American who is used to seeing everything picked up and nothing that can get in the airplane, and here that isn't the case. It doesn't need to be.
Russian jets are designed to perform in less than ideal conditions. Retractable titanium grates protect the engine intakes on the Su-27, 30, and 35. The MiG-29 has doors that automatically shut on its intakes to keep them from inhaling debris. During takeoff and landing, the MiG's engine breathes through slits at the top of the wings.
They build airplanes like tanks. The U.S. Air Force and the West builds airplanes like fine watches.
The U.S. builds sleek, sophisticated fighters that require teams of trained specialists to service them. Leading the pack are the Navy's big F-14 Tomcat and the F-18 Hornet.